Welcome to another of our Meet Your Legislators feature, brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Council and the Lignite Energy Council. There are a fair amount of new legislators this legislative session, and given the term limits passed by the voters, there will be a lot of new members over the upcoming year, so it's good to get the chance to meet these folks. Our next guest is Senator Justin Gerhardt. He is representing that great city of Mandan in District 34. Senator, how are you?
I'm great. Other than this cold, trying to get over a cold and hope my voice holds up through this today.
So you were here for a little bit for the special session, but otherwise this is your first full session. How's it going?
Well, I often tell people I haven't drowned yet, but I am trying to keep my head above water. It's a lot of activity here at the Capitol. There's a lot to keep up with. An unlimited amount of information to try and go through and find the appropriate amount to fill my, to read through and get through, and at what point is enough with that, trying to figure that out as a new legislator.
You enjoying it?
Most of it I'm enjoying. There's certainly other times I wish I had more time to relax, more time. There's not a lot of time off with this, but yes, it's certainly enjoyable. It's a huge honor to be here and represent the citizens of Mandan and also the whole state of North Dakota.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I was born and raised in Mandan. Let's see, I went to school at NDSU. I served 9 years in the National Guard, spent a year in Iraq during Operation Iraqi and Enduring Freedom. I have a construction engineering degree. I work for a contractor here in Bismarck as a project manager, and I've got 4 kids. My wife and I obviously reside in Mandan as a senator from there. I was appointed to the Senate back in the very tail end of 2023, and as you said, came in within days of being appointed into the special session, and so this is my first full session here as a senator.
Interesting. And you talk a little bit about taking the talents that you have in the private sector and bringing them here. I assume most people know this, but you're citizen legislators. You're paid very little. You get a stipend, but you have to leave your day-to-day job, right? So having employers, obviously like you do, that say it's important enough for us to do without a project manager on the job, but go serve the citizens, says a lot for the employers too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've had incredible support from my employer. Before even putting my name in for that appointment, I did have a discussion with them, and they said, we'll work through this. And so, to have that support, doing it without, I don't know how anyone could do it without the support of their employer. And so I count myself very blessed in that manner, as well as I compared to other legislators, I get to spend the night in my bed and in my home every night because I live 20 minutes from the Capitol. And so there's a lot of sacrifice by the legislators here to give up what's going on in their work lives and home lives to come to the Capitol for 4 months and put in some incredible hours here.
Let's talk a little bit about the overall economy of North Dakota. Obviously, in the construction world, those two are really linked. Mm-hmm. Talk about your construction background and things that are a priority here for you in the legislative session to make sure we continue to have a good, friendly business environment and the economic climate that keeps your industry booming too.
Well, I count my blessings many times that just by chance got to grow up in North Dakota and in the United States of America, both. How blessed we are as citizens here with the great economy we've had. I've been graduated from college in 2004, and, we've seen some struggles in our economy, but in general, as the economy across the United States was struggling, North Dakota, we've had this energy boom, and we've really been isolated as the rest of the United States has downturns. We tend to be doing well here, and so working, and it seems to what I recall back 2008-9 coming into the oil boom in construction. Yes, I remember sometimes where we were struggling to find work. Where we find work, public low bid work is where I've spent most of my career. And if there's no work out there, it gets really hard on a construction company. So Through the oil boom, though, there were times where the rest of the United States was struggling to find work, and we had more work than we knew what to do with as contractors around here. Through that time, I worked for a few different contractors, and at one point ended up in partnership with a couple other guys running a water sewer municipal company where we did work primarily in Bismarck, Mandan. I don't know. And currently now I work for someone, and I end up doing a lot of still public jobs for Parks and Rec type projects in the city of Bismarck, Mandan.
You mentioned the energy boom. You serve on the Energy Committee in the Senate, which is a pretty powerful spot. Talk a little bit about the issues that have been before the committee and things in the energy industry that are front burner for you right now in this session.
Well, we've got a bill right now related to the prairie dog funds, and so that has a lot of points of view on both sides of it that we'll be looking at tomorrow in committee work, and tomorrow, Friday. We have, to me, sitting on energy and natural resources, I've enjoyed a lot of the natural resource questions that come up related to hunting. I've got a bill passed the Senate here that would modify the youth deer tag. That's currently a whitetail antlerless tag. It would modify that to allow Game and Fish to the flexibility to offer any antlerless tag so that the youth, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, could be hunting a mule deer instead of just a whitetail, as we saw blue tongue devastate a lot of the whitetail population in certain areas of the state. Other energy, boy, my mind's going a little blank on some of the other energy issues.
We were talking before the break a little bit about you found yourself sort of in the middle on some issues. What tell me more about that.
Well, the carbon capture pipeline, I think that's been going on, as a major issue within the legislature for multiple sessions here now. We see bills that are dealing with carbon capture pipeline coming through. The energy industry seems to really desire the CO2 out in the oil fields for enhanced oil recovery. We see a lot of citizens very concerned about a carbon pipeline coming through their communities. And so balancing that in the Energy Committee and as a legislature is something we're working through right now.
There was a bill recently on preserving CO2 pipeline infrastructure that you actually ended up voting against. Tell us what your decision-making process was there.
Could you repeat that or on which bill? I'm trying to think which bill.
I think it was called, I'm terrible on numbers, but Senate Bill 2322, I guess is the number, but it was literally called Preserving CO2 Pipeline Infrastructure. To do with the common carrier status for the CO2 pipelines, which I guess the industry would argue, if you talk to the oil and gas industry, the lignite industry, they'd say, but for the delivery of CO2 to either sequester or use for enhanced oil recovery or other technologies, you don't have the life cycle for those two industries that are integral to the state of North Dakota.
I'm still trying to remember and get my mindset into that bill that you're referencing. You said I voted against the bill. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to remember.
You don't have to remember them all. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. But what don't you like about the carbon capture technology?
I don't have a lot of issues with the carbon capture technology. My concern where we're burying carbon for just the simple purposes of burying it, and the question of whether or not that actually serves a public good or a private interest. So that's been part of a balance. I believe that point becomes arguable at that point. When it's traveling as a commodity for purposes of enhanced oil recovery, I think it becomes much more obvious that's for a public good and less of a direct private interest. There was another bill that related to, and that's where my mind's kind of going back and forth on which bill you're referencing, but there's another bill that related to tax exemptions for carbon pipelines. And I believe that was one that I voted in favor of eliminating that tax exemption. I was struggling with why, as far as I understand, that's the only type of pipeline that receives that exemption. And so I didn't understand why, maybe at a time 20 years or so ago when that exemption was put in place, there might have been a good reason for it. But at this point in time, the industry is saying this is coming, it needs to come, we want it to come. It's kind of being pulled on one end and pushed on the other. I didn't understand why we still need that exemption in place. As I said, I worked in public utilities, water and sewer infrastructure for city and municipalities. And in all the time that I've done that, even the local subdivisions, political subdivisions, do not get a tax exemption on the products we're putting in the ground for them, whether it's water pipeline, storm sewer, all those things. I believe they do have a tax exemption if the public utility buys it themselves. That's where their sales tax exemption and such comes in. But in this case, it was being exempted from property tax as well as sales tax and whatnot. And I like I said, I felt like that might have had a time and place, but at this point in time, I didn't feel that exemption still needed to remain in place.
Interesting. Well, those are all the issues you deal with as a freshman legislator, that's for sure. Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, again, it's been a great honor being appointed and elected into the Senate. I appreciate the support of my constituents, and I sure hope they understand I'll do my best to represent them as best I can.
Senator Justin Gerhardt, District 34 Mandan legislator, one of the new legislators, in our Meet Your Legislator segment, brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Council and the Lignite Energy Council. Thanks for listening.